anytime your name is associated with pesticides, it's not good.
There are a lot of people that are interested in getting into business. They see a lot of opportunities, and they didn't have the traditional background of, oh yes, I had a cooking business and now I'm just incorporating cannabis into my cooking business. And so I think that what happened was the state was so focused on, regulating the areas that they didn't really have regulated before, THC servings, things like that. And they sort of forgot about the things that are naturally regulated by other agencies, like we talked about Department of Health, OSHA standards, education, things like that. They just assumed, I think, that would be brought in with the industry, and
not quite.
And so there was a small missed opportunity, I think, to really start implementing standards, best practices, and what we get now are things like pesticide misuse.
The core mission is to bring a healthy product to the consumer. Behind that mission is, that's what everybody says, because it sounds good to talk about, but hiring degreed horticulturalists, people that have a degree from a real university, from an accredited university, who have cultivated or worked in the USDA certified organic production industry outside of cannabis first, and then bringing their skills to our cultivation facility.
How does this happen, where a marijuana company has to recall so many of its products? I mean, what's life been like over there for the last couple months?
It's concerning, and we're thankful you give us a chance to come and talk a little bit, because I think that EdiPure, just from the public standpoint, doesn't really understand. This is deeply concerning to us. I mean, we work long and hard and spend hours on our technology and our product line to try and bring the product to the public in the safest and most enjoyable manner and compliant manner there is. And we don't actually cultivate our source material. We bring that in from third party and cultivators. We really rely on the truthfulness and the trust of the cultivator that we have, that we're buying what we're buying, and they're telling us what we're buying is truthfully what it is that we're buying.
So you guys don't grow at all? 100% of source trim?
Yeah, 100% of source material. Yeah,
okay.
100% of source material is
And
purchased.
ultimately, this is where some of the problem lies,
yeah,
right?
it's difficult if we're buying from a third party and we're not actually buying directly from the cultivator. We're relying on the third party to do their due diligence and consulting with the grow and the cultivator and making sure that what they're being sold is truthfully what they're being sold, so in turn they can turn around and sell it to us.
Food, we're eating it, we're ingesting it in a different way, and then cannabis, we're smoking or vaporizing or...
Well, none of these bottles, even if you look at any of the organic pesticides, none of it says cannabis. Mm-hmm. It's all for either commercial, residential, or ornamental use, because there is no category for cannabis. Right. Cannabis is not federally legal to where any of these companies can say, hey, I'm going to look at it and do a study. So nobody knows right now. You know what I mean? If the CDA and MED says they're bad, then they're bad.
How serious is this conversation about pot pesticides?
Well, I think it's a very serious conversation. I mean, I think pesticides, whether it's marijuana or tomatoes or any other crop, is a serious conversation. I mean, nobody wants to ingest harmful pesticides. So I do think it's something that we need to take very seriously. Unfortunately, like many of the other conversations we're having in this industry, this is still federally illegal, similar to banking and some of our tax problems we have. Until it's descheduled, we can't really get the federal agencies to really start testing and understanding whether, in this case, which pesticides are not harmful or are harmful. Can you use some in a certain stage of life, use some in other stages of life, et cetera? And that's the huge hurdle for us right now, is that we're kind of just living in this vacuum, if you will, of not being able to really understand the issue.
And the point here is that people, when they brought their black market grow skills or their gray market grow skills into this regulated world, they went to their nurseries and said, how do we control fungus? This is not some business owners, let's see what we can put on this stuff to kill it and be as dangerous as possible. This is responsible people talking to botanists and horticulturalists who told them, well, if you've got fungus, you want to use myclobutanil. It really controls it. And we know that if you smoke marijuana with myclobutanil in it, that will cause cancer. That will hurt you. So these business owners wanted to do the responsible thing and take care of that pesticide and use it in a way it's approved in backyard gardens with sufficient lag time between application and selling to the public, where we knew if we did that, we felt we were being responsible. And that's what's happened here, is that I think people got in a position where they did the best they could in the lack of a federal regime. And, you know, now everybody's taking the turn to kick the marijuana dog. And again, we're happy for this scrutiny because ultimately it will make the industry better.
Right.
And that's really what business owners want. They want good reputation. They want certainty. But this feels like another example of we're going to change the rules after the fact before we tell you what the rules are, and we're going to penalize you when you didn't even know what the rules were.
We know that these products can be harmful to your health. I appreciate Sean's point that you, in some cases, have to ingest a great deal of whatever product to get sick, but that's not the case for all products. He's pointing one out. We know that growers have used more noxious chemicals over the years, and presumably they will continue to do so in the future. I think you know, the other part of your question is that there's not a lot of science around this, that there hasn't been a lot of research. So I think it's silly to suggest that we shouldn't be cautious or to say that this isn't an issue just because a poison control center hasn't gotten a call. It's hard to identify, I think, specifically some symptom from pesticides. You know, my curiosity around that is what's this picture going to look like in 30 years, in 40 years, maybe in 20 years,
Sure.
when we have more time to really evaluate how it's impacted individuals' health and we've been able to do meaningful longitudinal study.
Tell us about how legitimately realistic it would be for you, you know, to imagine a world without pesticides. So,
I can say what we do is that we go based upon what the MED and CDA says we're allowed to do.
sure.
And that's essentially what we do. As long as they say we're allowed to use it,
Oh yeah, you use
we'll use what we feel
approved.
with it. And that, you know, it's all organic right now. Everything has been mandated as such for what everybody's having to use. You're still going to find guys that are going to get hung up for using
yeah,
something
sure.
illegal because it's more difficult to grow in an all organic regimen as opposed to chemicals. But
Denver came out with the label
A bulletin.
restriction, a
Yeah,
bulletin.
it came out with a bulletin.
And so a week prior, they came out and inspected our labels. The lady at the city, who shall remain nameless, came in and inspected our labels and told us, since we had so many bags we had already pre-ordered before Spinosat had been, which was the chemical that we still had on
Sure.
our label, we had ordered those a long time ago. And so we said, listen, can we just cross that out because we don't use it? And she said, sure, that's acceptable, but if that changes, we'll let you know. So a week later, she came back in and said, it's not going to be acceptable, and we need to put a temporary hold on your plants or on your product. So they didn't actually stop us from selling, but they put a temporary hold. Said you need to
Right.
have this done in 24 hours and show us that you're not using these chemicals. So we sent it off to the lab immediately, had it tested, everything came back completely negative. The hold was lifted, but there was already a story about it.
It's the same thing that happened in agriculture, right? Like, you think back to folks in your industry, like Upton Sinclair and so forth, like back to, you know, the days of the meatpacking plants in Chicago. Like, this industry came up, and the focus has been primarily on yield and you know, meeting the demand that's grown and then developing the infrastructure from a legal perspective, from a regulatory perspective. And this is sort of a natural byproduct of, okay, now things have settled a bit. Let's look at the way things, you know, are being cultivated. And so I think this is a natural evolution. And I think that no grower on the market has not been transparent about what they're using.
Way, you can use beneficial bugs.
Beneficial bugs, I love it.
Yeah, and part of that is really understanding the life cycle of the pest that you're going after, and understanding which pest is best for that particular point in that bug's life cycle, what environmental conditions are advantageous for your predatory pest, what environmental conditions are less advantageous for the targeted pest. So, you know, some of the bugs we use are lacewing, ladybug, a bug called Aphidus colmani, which we're experimenting with right now.
No pesticide, whether organic or synthetic, is safe, right? Like, it's all about exposure and the quantity used. So, for instance, neem neem oil is an oil extracted from a neem tree. and it's natural, like people use it to brush their teeth and so forth. But if you were to shower in neem oil, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be advisable, just as, probably minimum exposure to equal 20 in certain circumstances is not, recommended.